Welcome aboard, everyone, to Betting Weekly Live with Steve Wyss and Will White. It is Tuesday, the 12th of August, and we are going to be looking ahead to the entire UEFA Champions League qualifying slate today. There's no sleet around here. It's absolutely red hot, Will, in Yorkshire and most of England. How are you doing? All the Champions League second legs are on the line today with the Super Cup on tomorrow. It's kind of exciting ahead of the final rounds in the next week or two.
Hey, Steve, good day to you. Good day to everyone out there. We know if it's sunny in Yorkshire that it's definitely sunny down here, down south. I'm actually a Yorkshireman myself, so I'm allowed to make jokes about Yorkshire, God's country. But yeah, exciting. We're not quite at squeaky bum time, are we? But we're getting there, and it's a pretty juicy card today. We said that last week. Hopefully we can find some winners.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually got my shorts on today, which rarely happens outside anyway. I won't show anyone. I won't do a Dan Roebuck here when he revealed his feet all those shows ago. But yeah, that's how hot it is here. Doesn't happen too often in Yorkshire. But welcoming everyone. We've had so many comments even before we went live today. But welcoming Leslie, Matt, Tristan, Byron, Rick Haley as well. Villa fan. Great comment there. Hi to both of us. What a glorious day to be alive. Like and subscribe, everyone. Absolutely. We would really appreciate as many subscriptions as possible. And of course, the likes. Michael Munch, good to see you. Ming Chung, Steve from Lynn as well. Duncan Evans, Holo Ihe, ZT, Dan Roebuck. Welcome in, Dan. Speak of the devil. Brad Betts Football as well. AZ Flights and Noah Goodman. Good to see you. So much interest. Put your best bets in chat today in the UEFA Champions League and Europa League. There's also EFL Cup. We're not going to be having any actual picks for it, but I'm sure there's so many in chat who've got a local edge, perhaps, who knows the team news and stuff like that. There's got to be some absolute gems out there. But I've said before, the cups and these lower rounds often do take a lot of proper research and a bit of local inside knowledge on your teams. So put your best bets in chat just before we move on. A reminder to please sign up to the Betting Weekly newsletter at bettingweeklystudios.com. Monday and Friday newsletter. The insider this week is going to be back to normal how it was last season. We're going to have picks on all the Premier League games and some big matches in Europe. So straight to your inbox. Costs you absolutely nothing. The pick I gave out in yesterday's newsletter is definitely one of my strongest fancies in a while in the Champions League. Really do like it. I put the link there on the chat. So there you go. Dan Roebuck says QPR are playing the kids. So there's a potential fade there. Brad Betts Footy. I mean, the Premier League boys are going to be, I think the show will come out on Friday at midday. Thursday at midday, in fact, for week one. At the moment, I am thinking Newcastle are perhaps a bit of a fade, but that's for another day. We're going to get straight into UEFA Champions League action. There's a match that kicks off in less than an hour. Qarabag against Skendija. Qarabag with a 1-0 lead after the first leg and have looked impressive in qualifying so far. Well, it must be said. Plenty of clean sheets, some really good metrics. Skendija, it looks like it's probably the end of the road for them. Plus 900 to win at a renowned, difficult location. Over 2.5 goals at minus 148. I find this a difficult game. Part of me was actually looking at both teams score no, but then I was thinking, hold on a minute, this might go quite open. I can't make up my mind. Qarabag don't even need to win. In the previous round, they beat Shelbourne away from home and only won 1-0 at home. So how do you see this one going? Is there any value to be found?
It's a tricky one. We were on Skendija +2 in the previous round away from home at FCSB. And if you look at the line here, it's now 1.5. So obviously, Qarabag have won already the return leg, and so they don't have to necessarily win here. But the market is saying that Qarabag are half goal worse than FCSB. And I don't agree with that. I actually think Qarabag are better than FCSB. So I won't be on Skendija here, the +1.5. I do like Qarabag generally as a team. Obviously, they've got a large home field advantage as well. It really depends on how much they're up for this and, how many they want to score, really. I think guns ahead, I'd be looking at overs. I think the line's about 2.75, which is a little bit low, but at the very most, that's a lean and very low confidence.
Yeah, I've got absolutely nothing for this game at all. I can tell you the breakdown. 89% of the money was on Qarabag, 83% of the tickets, and we've got 82% of the money on the over for this game. You can watch on the live stream, BetRivers app or website. In fact, all of these, 8 of the Champions League qualifying games can be watched on the live stream today on the BetRivers app. Dan Robert says Pafos draw no bet. That's like clockwork, that. Dan and Pafos are hand in hand. He's one of Pafos' biggest fans, but that was a great result for them last week. We'll talk about that match very soon. Simon Holden says you can't win anything with kids. Some people are saying the QPR kids are maybe better than the first team. Noah Goodwin there with some suggestions on a parlay for the Carabao Cup, or EFL Cup, whatever it's called these days. Is it Carabao? I think it still is Carabao. Not entirely sure. Effie Brilovsky says under 2.5 goals in Benfica and Bruges. Kiev money line. So we're already Effie and Dan are against each other. Building up to the Champions League page. Let's go to this Pafos game. Pafos Dynamo Kyiv. I've got to be honest, I got this one wrong last week. Me and Nigel were on the show. We really liked Dynamo Kyiv. But really, I mean, Pafos has got the win. It seems like, I'm not saying they didn't deserve it. Certainly a draw at least was deserved on the metrics and stuff like that and the pattern of play. The Cypriot teams are going really, really well in these qualifying at the minute. Is that league improving? It may well be. Will they Dynamo Kyiv at plus 123 away favourite here. Interesting game. How do you price this one up?
Yeah, I don't know if the Cypriot league is improving, but I do think the Pafos story is interesting, and I think Pafos in general are slightly underrated by the markets. They were only founded in 2014. Dan will know. Dan knows all about Pafos. Won the Cypriot League last season for the first time. Big Iberian, Brazilian influence there. I believe they use quite a lot of data and analytics in terms of transfer policy and recruitment and stuff. And I like them. I've kind of been bullish them for quite a while. And I quite like them here, with the caveat that they're 1-0 up from the first leg. A draw would suit them. But we're on the plus handicap. So I think the plus quarter main line is quite attractive. I think if this were a first leg, I'd definitely be betting that. And I may even fancy them on the draw no bets. But the other thing is this is quite big ratings value for me as well. My ratings model is definitely flagging up Pafos. I mean, generally it will be flagging up teams that where the market is essentially looking at them not having to win, and so assigning a big premium to that. But this is one that I quite like myself. One slight disclaimer is Dynamo did get backed in really heavily in that first leg. They went from -3/4 to -1 in kind of their more, it was the home leg, but it was on neutral territory just over the border in Poland. And this, I've got it down as a lean Pafos plus a quarter, but that I might be tempted to turn that into an official bet if the odds continue to drift and we get some real plus money on the Pafos plus a quarter. I just think they're underrated by the market, basically.
They are steadily improving. Last season in the Conference League, they had a really good home record. I think only Heidenheim beat them at home. That was way back in October. I think they're probably a better side since then. I definitely underestimated them in leg one. So when I'm betting like that, then I'm very reluctant sometimes to go against them again. I'm not going to bet on this game myself. It's close with the money line. Just 62% of the money is on Dynamo Kyiv. 51% of the money is on the over. Seems like the public really split on this game, Will. Can't make their mind up on it, and I can't make my mind up either. So, yeah, but if you get the Pafos, if those odds increase on Pafos, then it may be sort of a no-brainer bet. Dan Roebuck, he's got a second home out there in Pafos. He's familiar with them very much so. Brad Bettesfoot, he reckons that Pafos have come into some money recently. Bigger investors, British and Russian. There you go. That could perhaps explain it. Chris Graham, until you know the teams, difficult to pump with confidence in the Carabao. I think the first two rounds of the Carabao Cup are really, really difficult, Chris. Lineups. A tact if you are going to bet in it is maybe wait till the lineups are out. But I get you can get an edge if you kind of know what the lineup might be as well. So anyway,
just actually looking at that QPR game, as Dan mentioned that they're likely to be playing their kids if you look at market movement so far on the EFL Cup, Plymouth, so QPR's opponents, are the team that have already shortened the most. So it seems like that information is out there in the maybe public domain, but I would not be surprised if Dan is bang on about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching Leicester Sheffield Wednesday on Sunday, and Sheffield Wednesday in a right state. I don't think they'll be able to rotate. So I was thinking they might be an auto fade, but Bolton is something like minus 150 to beat them, or were.
That's insane.
To be honest, I didn't really like what I saw from Leicester either. I think they've got Huddersfield. I wouldn't be betting on Leicester at minus money. Let's see how these EFL Cup results go. Some really spicy fixtures to talk about now. FC Copenhagen against Malmo. It wasn't a good Tuesday for me last Tuesday. Well, I got this one wrong. Malmo 0, FC Copenhagen 0. Malmo didn't have a shot on target, didn't get a single corner. I think their XG was less than 0.2. It was a shocking performance. They did well to get a draw out of it. Copenhagen weren't exactly amazing either, but they were a better team. Minus 152 to win the second leg after a 0-0 draw. Malmo plus 450. Yet again, a really low goal line for this match, same as it was last week. FC Copenhagen minus 400 to qualify. I really hope Malmo improve. This is just my own personal Swedish bias. But if they play like they did last week, they're not getting a result here.
Yeah, I think certainly you know more about Malmo than I do, and probably FC Copenhagen as well. I don't tend to cover the Scandinavian leagues, but I did fancy Copenhagen on draw no bet line last week and felt a bit grieved they didn't get the win. They were the much better team, but they didn't generate that much. I mean, they generated, like you say, Malmo less than 0.2 XG, but also Copenhagen were less than 0.8, I think, or around about 0.8. So although I fancy them, it's hard to contemplate backing them on the minus 3/4 line. It's only a half win if they win by 1. So I was hoping for minus a half. So I guess I do lean FC Copenhagen minus 3/4. Don't expect a big drift on them before kickoff here. But if they do, I'll happily back them minus a half if they get there. In regards to the total, I don't really know these two teams very well, but I have a sense that this line is a bit too low, even though we had 1.0 roughly total XG created in the first leg last week. I just have a feeling that 2 is a little bit low. So if I had to get involved in the total, it would be on over 2. Very low confidence, currently not even a lean.
Charlie DeLucy says he's got a lead on both teams to score at plus money. Interesting stat there, 24 straight home games that FC Copenhagen have scored in. I still am not convinced by FC Copenhagen, but I have to admit, at this point, I make them the favourites to make the group stage because the winner faces Basel, who are Swiss champions, who I don't think are that great. So one thing I did take from last week was FC Copenhagen's experience in Europe in the Champions League, I think did play a big part physically as well. I think the lineup was... Malmo have got a lot of young, talented players, technical, but they're a little bit lightweight physically, and that concerned me, especially in midfield. I've got a couple of leans on this game, and the first one is a goal scorer. Someone's mentioned they rotated. Brad Betts mentioned they rotated at the weekend. The big lad up front, Andreas Cornelius, plus 290 to score any time. They couldn't really handle him very well last week. He's a massive physical presence, a bit of a bully, and if he doesn't score, I could see him getting a knockdown to setting someone up. So Bet Rivers are not offering to score or assist, sadly, but I think Cornelius is going to cause more sorts of problems here. And then on the corner count last week, I think they won it 7-0. I looked at the minus 2.5 corner handicap on Copenhagen, but I think over 5.5 FC Copenhagen corners looks good here. The way Malmo were defending last week, it was a lot more frantic, just happy to knock the ball behind. So I hope I'm kind of wrong about Malmo, because I think they do have sort of untapped ability in there, but they're not good in the situation, the pressure perhaps of this position of Champions League qualifying. So I think you're looking at about 2-0 FC Copenhagen, if I'm being honest, in this game.
What I will say, Steve, about that Copenhagen team is Yusufa Moukoko, ex-Borussia Dortmund, he was showing, he is undoubtedly a super talented kid, and he still is a kid. And if he's firing in this Copenhagen team, he's going to be a problem. and he's going to be a problem with the likes of Cornelius, who you were talking about earlier. Personally, at a much bigger price, I'd be probably looking at Makuku to get on the score sheet as opposed to Cornelius, because Cornelius's goal scoring record is not that strong. He's a big lad that kind of puts himself about, gets a lot of knockdowns, is good at linking up play, but it doesn't seem to me to be a massive goal scoring threat. And Kuku is, I think, I've always thought of him as a super talented player, and could be another look there.
Yeah, it didn't work out for him on loan at Nice last season, but he, I mean, you're kind of right. Cornelius is one of those annoying players that he probably might get an assist more than a goal here. I'm just kind of hoping that he can use his big physique to just nod home a header, set piece and stuff like that, because it looked a bit of a mismatch at times. Not necessarily against someone like Pontus Jansson, but a lot of the younger lads who he's happy to drop deeper as well in places. So I think he's going to have a great game, actually, Cornelius. Today, Philip reckons Cornelius is past his prime, but this is not exactly prime opposition, is it? Eli Nusi as well. Jan Philip mentions him. He had a good game last week. Again, he's quite a big, for someone who plays in that position, cutting inside, he is quite a big physical player. So let's just see how this game goes. I don't see anyone really supporting Malmo in the chat. There's no support for Malmo here in chat either on the show. The money is for FC Copenhagen. Not as much as you think, though. Just 78% of the tickets and 57% of the money. 81% of the over-under money's on the over. So a few are nibbling away at this sort of lowish goal line, Will. You did say it looked maybe unnaturally low. So let's see how that one pans out. Right, bottom of the screen there, the big game we're going to talk about. Fenerbahce against Feyenoord. That minus 165 on Fenerbahce is bloody hell. This is really old news now. Minus 210 on Fenerbahce at the time of going live. I cannot believe this. Why is there such a big move towards Fenerbahce? Feyenoord can be backed as big as nearly 5-1 in this game now, plus 475 with Bet Rivers. I'm astonished by this. Over 3.5 goals at plus 128. I've not got a bet in this game at this point in time, but I've got a feeling you're going to convince me into something here, Will. Should Fenerbahce be minus 215? How would you weigh up the odds for this fixture?
No, they shouldn't be minus 215. It's way too short, but similar pattern in the first leg. There was just endless money for Fenerbahce. I think it's about this Feyenoord defense, which is decimated by injuries. You know, they're playing, I think, at least 3 of the 4 projected starting back 4 here is going to be new. So kind of not from their starting back 4 last season. I think that's what this is about. Also, there's the Fenerbahce home advantage as well, which is big. And the fact that they've got the must-win factor, which, as we've already talked about, the market heavily weights. It's about timing, right? At what point do you get on Feyenoord? And from the last update, it seems like about now might be the right time. I mean, we cashed on our over 2.5 and Feyenoord minus a quarter in the first leg. Probably quite lucky. Definitely lucky to win both, but probably quite lucky to win that over. Is there really that much of a difference in the quality between these two teams? You know, are El Naziri and Duran really much better than Haj Musa and Ueda? Are Fred and Amrabat really that much better than Timber and Stein? I don't think so. I think those are pretty. I think these two teams are pretty well matched, and a 1-goal handicap is just. It's just ridiculous, to be honest. So I like Feyenoord plus a goal. I'm nervous about their defense, but I said this last week. I'm nervous about their defense against guys like Duran and El Nesri, but also some pizza money on Feyenoord over 1.5 goals team total. That's a massive plus 195. I think that's probably worth it as well. Fenerbahce will push. They are not exactly that solid defensively themselves. Overs is kind of tempting, but the line has adjusted since last week. So, yeah, Feyenoord plus a goal, around about even money, and Feyenoord team total over 1.5 at around about plus 200.
I'm intrigued because How much of a home field advantage do you give Fenerbahce here? It's got to be one of the most in Europe because of the crowd factor, travelling factors, and stuff like that. Is that a possible explanation why they've been backed into minus 210? You'd see Fenerbahce at home, and they're kind of an auto bet for a lot of bettors out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there are a few factors. Home field advantage is big here. I think home field advantage for Feyenoord when they're at home at De Kuip is also big. And so the market assumes that they're poor travellers as well, which they might be. I don't know their record off the top of my head, but they might be poor travellers. And that's what the market, it's kind of like it's supercharged by home field advantage, needing to win. And then also this kind of, it does seem like the big Turkish teams are strengthening quite significantly this summer. Galatasaray have, Fenerbahce also seem to be in the headlines after some big names. The market is just playing off this kind of triple threat thing that's propelling Fenerbahce to ridiculously short odds. And at what point do we bet Feyenoord? Probably about now.
Yeah, I mean, over 90% of the money is on Feyenoord. On Fenerbahce. So it explains it. I agree with you. I think the +1 here, +1 goal on Feyenoord, it's just kind of one of them bets that you look at it. It's clear value. If you bet on that 50 times, you're going to make a profit. A long-term sort of bet. I'm really surprised if anyone genuinely makes them. -1 goal, -1 point, getting borderline 1.25 goal favourite here in this match. So let's go to the next fixture. We've got a big blow up here, actually, of if I can find it. There we go. Viktoria Plzen against Rangers. And Viktoria Plzen here, -139 favourite. Rangers +300. The ties at +320. It's a bit of a soap opera, Rangers right now. Russell Martin, they need to have a documentary here. I reckon it would go down quite well. Big performance, though, from Rangers in Europe. In the league, domestically, they've been really poor. So how do we now tackle this from a betting perspective, Will?
Well, I'm a bit disappointed here that we can't get Plzen at minus half a goal here. It's kind of reminding me of the Panathinaikos Rangers tie, where Rangers won at home. Panathinaikos went off -3/4 at home. All the money came for Panathinaikos. Rangers ended up scraping a draw, albeit they were outplayed, and Pana probably deserved to win that. Maybe I'd consider backing Plzen -3/4 if they still had their former best player, Pavel Such. He's gone now to Lyon. I think he left officially the day before the first leg. So he's a big miss. It's hard to contemplate backing a team against a team -3/4 of a goal against a similar quality team when they're missing the most creative player. Despite, this kind of comeback factor, the fact they need to win, the fact that Rangers can lose by 2 goals and still go through, etc. So I'm disappointed about that. But what I will say is Jedi Gassama from Rangers looks astronomical at +500 anytime goal scorer. Sadly, there's no shots on target market, as we know, for the qualifiers on Bet Rivers. There will be, presumably, when the group stage returns. But that +500, this guy has scored in all 3 of the Champions League qualifiers so far for Rangers, including 2 in the first leg versus Plzen. And I think he came on as a sub in the first 2. So he scored 4 goals in 139 minutes. And if you look at the matchup here, Plzen are probably going to have most of the ball and most of the play. Rangers will look to hit them on the break. And a guy like Gassama, who likes to cut in, he's going to be a threat. He's a very direct threat. And so +500, I think, is clearly too big. Obviously more likely to lose than to win at +500. But let's have some pizza money on that and then just be a bit disappointed we couldn't get on Plzen -half a goal.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with the Plzen price, I must say. Efri Brilovski's got under 2.75 in this game. I was actually looking towards over 2.75. It's at -136, so I kind of wanted an over 2.5 line, really, if I'm being honest. But if that match goes under, then Plzen are knocked out.
So, and they're the home team here. We think they're probably going to win, have a decent chance of winning. I mean, Russell Martin said they're not going to ease off despite being 3-0 up, and I believe him. I think he's the sort of manager who doesn't spout a lot of BS in his press conferences. He kind of tells it how it is, really. I think we'll get a reaction from Rangers again because they only drew 1-1 at home as a 1-8 favourite at the weekend. Nearly lost. I think Dundee would have been nearly 15-16-1. I think the last time, domestically they're really poor. It seems to be the same sort of cycle. Then he sort of whips them like a horse, and then they come back in Europe and play quite well. So I think Rangers are certainly capable of getting on the score sheet. I don't know if Mikey Moore is available in answering Lee's question there. They have got him on loan, haven't they, from Spurs, do believe.
I think he didn't qualify for registration because he was under 18 or something, and I think he's just turned 18 or something like that. He's literally just turned the age he has to be able to be qualified by UEFA, and so I think is a question mark, but he is registered.
And I do agree with Effie there. I think last season he was making some very good points about the money involved in the European fixtures for some of these clubs. I think for Rangers it would be massive for them to reach the group stage. Absolutely right. They were down at 10 men against Dundee, but they should be beating Dundee with 9 men at home, shouldn't they? Nothing, no disrespect to Dundee, but I think they're one of the favourites to go down. But anyway, in terms of the money for the game, Rangers are backed. 79% of the money is on them. Not really a surprise. They're a big name in Europe. Often a sort of team that people like to back in European competitions. It's been profitable over the last few years. As a reminder, this match can be streamed live on BetRivers app and the website as well. There's loads of fixtures today. Onto page 2 here. Club Brugge Salzburg. I got burned last week in this game, Will. I was on the overs. There was a lot of chances. The keepers had a good game. Club Brugge won it 1-0. It could have probably ended anything, though, really. And I'm a sucker for punishment. I'm going to go in again here. Second best bet of the day for me, this one. Over 2.75 goals at -127. I mean, from everything I saw in that first leg, there should have been more goals. I know how there weren't more goals. The missed chances and goalkeepers. I was a bit surprised to see this goal line kind of actually lower than last week. I'm guessing the first leg score is maybe one of the reasons for it, though.
Yeah, exactly. And I think because Bruges came away with a 1-0 win, they're at home now. Normally the emphasis would be on them to attack, but they're 1-0 up, so maybe they'll sit back a bit more than otherwise. But yeah, overs backers definitely got very unlucky last week. 3.22 total XG created, which is high. We did get the Romeo Vermant anytime goal scorer in the bag, though, a big +275. He was the only scorer in the game. He's been cut to +225 here, and I think that still might represent some value, because given he probably is the main threat for Bruges now. He averages almost a goal every 100 minutes across the last season and this. So we'll go on Vermant again at +225. I agree with Steve. Overs is probably the value. Over 2.75 at -127 sounds quite good to me, with the caveat that Oscar Gluck left for Ajax. I did mention that last week. That's why I wasn't on last week. And so it's only a lean for me, but it's an official play for Steve. It probably should be an official play for most of us.
Yeah, that was a great hit from you last week on Vermant. +225 now at home to score anytime. That seems more than generous again. He might be a sort of player going under the radar right now at Club Brugge. I think there's goals in this game. Red Bull Salzburg can get involved in some crazy games at times. And I mean, last week was actually quite a crazy game. The goalkeepers did impress me, but hopefully they've used all their saves last week. I think Club Brugge will go through. They're the better team for me, and I think I could see them winning this something like 3-2. Even wouldn't surprise me. Salzburg will give it a go. They might even prefer being away from home. Actually, they're that sort of team, good on the counter attack. AZ flights. It's going to be warm there, I believe. You're referring to the Plzen game. Or Bruges. To be fair, it's warm everywhere in Europe. I think apart from Copenhagen, even there, I think it's knocking on the 25 degrees Celsius door. But yeah, 80% of the money's on Club Brugge, 91% of the money's on the over for that game. Other fixtures to talk about: Slovan Bratislava, Kairat, Almaty. This was the newsletter pick I gave out on yesterday's on Monday's newsletter. I really like the home team here, -1 Asian, strong pick for me, best bet of the day. It's a simple case of you want to be betting against a Kazakhstani team when they're away from home. Whoever it's been down the years historically struggles. They've won the first leg 1-0, which is good news actually, because Slovan have got to win the second leg at least by 1 goal in 90 minutes. They've had a good home record over the last year or two in Europe, and losing 1-0 away there, nearly 4,500 kilometers away, is not terrible for Slovan Bratislava. I'm expecting them to dominate right from the off. Kairat's results away from home have not been very, very good. And so I think it's a bit of a free hit, really. -1 Asian handicap is at even money now with Bet Rivers. I was also even looking, I don't often bet on this market, but the halftime, full-time result 1-1, as in home win, not the 1-1 tie, is +155 for Slovan to be winning at halftime and full-time. I think that's a really big price, especially when the halftime result for Slovan, I think, is +110. So halftime, full-time for me there, +155 for a little bit of extra pizza money. How do you assess this game, Will? And do you have to factor in that huge travelling distance the Kazakhstani side have got?
You do have to factor it in for sure. And the market is definitely factoring it in. I mean, Kairat went off -0.5. Remember, they got absolutely smashed in last week. And we've swung to +1 here. So we've had a full 1.5 goal swing. So the market is certainly heavily weighting home field advantage and travel and stuff. The data looks like to me like Kairat were pretty dominant in that first leg. I always look at this Slovan Bratislava team and I think they've got some pretty good players in it. How are they not better than they actually are? So overall, I think this is like the vibes and kind of like the soft factors are definitely favor Slovan Bratislava here. And that's not really my betting style. My betting style is more about trying to measure things and assign values to things and ratings and stuff. So I can't back Slovan Bratislava minus a goal here. In fact, I would probably lean Kairat plus a goal. But that is based off my betting style. And actually, I think my betting style is not the correct approach for this game. And so I'd probably bow to your approach, which is definitely more considering the soft factors and things that are harder to measure.
Yeah, there's certain games I think you do have to maybe go outside the box a little bit. Sort of anomalies, if you know what I mean. This may well be one of them because of the different factors involved. The last week they did dominate Kairat. They probably should have won by more than a goal. There was a red card involved, I think, second half. Slovan played most of the second half with 10 men. Kairat are the sort of team that like to shoot a lot, even from range. So they'll have a few pop shots here. But I think Slovan, very bare minimum, take this to extra time. And I'm fully expecting them to qualify, to be brutally honest with you. Simon King said he thinks the ref was on Kairat in the first leg. It was a very soft penalty. It looks a little bit dubious. The things did kind of go their way a bit. But that is soccer sometimes. Every Brlovsky scares Bruges team total over 1.5 goals. I don't mind that bet at all, Effie. I think that's a good looking bet today. Salzburg, the sort of team who will, well, if they're still in contention, they'll take risks. So the goal scoring potential is definitely there. Ferencvaros, Ludogorets, 0-0 first leg this one, and quite a tight match. Ferencvaros now -200 to win the second leg. Managed by Robbie Keane, of course. Over 2.5 goals is plus money. How much of a difference is there between the Hungarian and Bulgarian league? Do you think, Will, does it warrant -200 favouritism at home?
Not sure about the difference between the leagues, but the difference between the teams, well, the market thinks there's a big difference. Ferencvaros got heavily backed in the first leg. They went off favourites away, and now, they're getting backed here. And I think that's I think the -1 is a bit too rich for my bloods. But if it gets to +1.25 Ludogorets, I think I'll be forced to take them there. Frankly speaking, don't know too much about either team. Do have ratings for both. The ratings are screaming that Ludogorets are a bet. I'm respecting I'm respecting the feeling I have that Ferencvaros are pretty good this year, and the fact that they got heavily backed in the first leg. So it's a no play at the moment, but if Ludogorets get to +1.25, it's a bet for me. And that's what I think.
Yeah, I've got nothing on this game. I do want to give a shout out. I think it was Byron last week who said both teams to score no. Looks a really good. But I was on the other way. I expected it to be quite an open clash, but it was a clearly deserved 0-0. So shout out to that play from last week, and a big shout out to chat last week as well. Will, in the Red Star against Lech Poznan game, loads were liking Red Star in that, and they delivered the goods. -200 now to beat Lech in the second leg. They've got a clear, comfortable advantage. They don't need to win, but we know what they're like at this venue. Very, very good.
Yeah, shout out to the boys in the chat that got this spot on. There were numerous of them shouting for Crvena Zvezda on the draw no bet line. I didn't get involved myself, but yeah, 3-1 victory. The underlying stats show it was a bit more equal than that. So I certainly wouldn't be backing the -1 here whilst 3-1 up. And actually, considering game state, I'm actually leaning Lech Poznan +1. I don't think they're that bad. Could be tempted by goals, but 3.25 is a pretty high line, so I'll be leaving that one too.
Welcome to hell. I think that's what, excuse me, that it reads in the tunnel at Red Star there, or along those lines. Yeah, that's a brave bet, actually, opposing Red Star in a game like this.
Yeah, I think two things I'd say. First of all, I'm a sucker for a home advantage measured by distance the fans are from the pitch. If I remember rightly, the Crvena Zvezda pitch has actually got the kind of Olympic running track in between. So I'm not sure it's as intimidating as the Crvena Zvezda fans think it is. But also, Lech Poznan have got a pretty energetic atmosphere at home, so I think they'll be used to it. And yeah, apologies to any Red Star fans out there if the atmosphere is more intimidating than I'm making out. But yeah, I'm happy to be the contrarian and take Lech Poznan +1 here, just as a lean, I think. But yeah,
that's going to be an interesting one if we clip that one up. Red Star fans are going to be coming for Will White. We are definitely more intimidating than you think. One more match to talk about before we finish the show, and it's Benfica Nice. Full blown up graphic for this fixture. Benfica looked good in that first leg to me, controlled it, won it 2-0, -265 now in the second leg. Nice continue to be really poor in Europe, not done anything in these competitions for a while. Talk to me about the goal line here, Will, because you know me, I'm not really someone who likes to bet unders, but how can under 3.25 goals be -127 when last week the goal line was pretty much 2.5, closer to 2.75 perhaps in places? It's a huge difference in 1 week.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you take the margin out of that -150, I think the main Asian line is closer to 3. So that's just a half a goal shift, and second legs generally expect higher goal lines anyway. So there's a bit of that. There's a bit of Nice, as I definitely overestimated Nice in the first leg. Thankfully, their actual odds didn't get to my target price on the +1/4, so we did avoid a loss there. We avoided a bet, but it's really hard to know what the actual game state is here and how both teams are going to approach it. And my approach has been, given the market is expecting goals, and I can see that, look for some goal scorers. And, Pavlidis and Ivanovic are definitely the main men for Benfica. And they're both priced as plus money anytime goal scorers. So maybe there's an angle there. If you back both of them, you still make a profit if only one of them scores. And it kind of is hard to imagine a match where neither of them score. But, those are just thoughts. Those are just leans. They're not official plays. And I can see goals here. So I can understand how the goal line is around about 3.
It's going to be very, very hot in Lisbon. Right now, it's over 100 degrees as we speak. That match kicks off in about 3.5 hours' time. It's going to be a little bit cooler then. But I just think Benfica are good enough to shut Nice out anyway. So for me, I'm going to have a bet here. It's not a big bet, but under 3.25 goals on sheer principle. I am looking at Nice as a bit of an unders team this season in general. Actually, I'm already eyeing them up for the first match at Toulouse as under 2.5 goals at the weekend. They don't finish their chances enough. They haven't quite been the same since Guesson's gone. I think Benfica will just kind of do what they need to do to go through, whether that means drawing or winning by 1, even losing by 1 goal. They can take that. So definitely it's a bet for me. Not a huge one, but I don't usually like unders either. So I've got to go with that. Will, I'm going to ask you for your best bet soon. But before we go, a couple of reminders. We've got Betting Weekly Tennis Live coming up in about an hour and 20 minutes. We've got Tim and Rory today. Betting Weekly Hardball with Doug and Chris. And then Betting Weekly Fast Break later on with Sarah and Albert. Doug and Albert went 3-0 yesterday on the Fast Break show, so they're in great form. And then a reminder to everyone, on Saturday, we've got a brand new show. Betting Weekly Live is going to be at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 2 p.m. in the UK for at least a half an hour slot, looking towards the kickoffs in the Premier League plus Bundesliga when it comes a couple of weeks' time. Unfortunately, I don't think you're going to be on one of those Saturday shows this year, Will, which is a shame. But it's going to be an exciting one. I'm sure you may be tuning along. So some expert advice from our handicappers. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's a shame I can't be on. Saturdays are busy for me with following the betting markets. Steve, I think if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, is it not our 1-year anniversary today? I mean, not you and I as a partnership. I mean, Betting Weekly Live. Is it our 1-year anniversary?
Yes,
today?
and that's what I was going to sign off with. I mentioned it yesterday. Is exactly, we're a year old, Betting Weekly Live.
Wow.
This edition of it. So, thanks to everyone who's been tuning in. It's obviously, there's been plenty of shows that have come from it. Betting Weekly Tennis Live, Betting Weekly Live now on a Saturday. We're Monday to Friday each week at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and that's never changed. We've always been there for you. I think apart from Christmas Day, we've been there. So, and thanks to everyone who's been with us from day one, really, not just the live show, but when the channel started. Here's a name. Shakespeare is here. Hope you're doing really well, Shakespeare. Not seen him for a while. NHL futures. The Florida Panthers under 106.5 points at minus 115. 100% Shakespeare money back guarantee. Florida Panthers under 106.5 points. There you go. Love that. Will, what's your best bet for today?
It's a super uncomfortable one. Feyenoord +1. Very uncomfortable about it. And I'm considering switching to over 2 3/4 in the Brugge game. But no, I got to stick with the value. I've got to stick with a price that's just absurd. And so Feyenoord plus a goal around about even money it's just been mispriced, and I've got to take it.
I think that's a great pick on sheer value. I really cannot disagree with that. You have convinced me into betting it. That's for sure. My best bet is that one in the newsletter that I gave out yesterday. Slovan Bratislava -1 Asian handicap. Thank you everyone who joined live or on demand. Dan Roebuck says get on Pafos, draw no bet. Good luck all. Tomorrow I'm going to be with Nigel Seeley and we're going to have a full breakdown for the UEFA Super Cup, Spurs versus PSG. I don't think there's a lot else on the card, but we're going to have plenty of betting angles on that game. Will, it was a pleasure as always. See you next week for more Champions League. Take care, everyone. Remember to gamble responsibly. And like I say, I'll see you tomorrow at Betting Weekly Live.